So I like to switch it up and keep it interesting. And I've known about Assemblies of Yahweh for a long time. They're actually a lot closer to me than the Eliam ministry. There, there's a lot of traditions in the area of Missouri, which are great. But this particular one is, and they've been around for actually a lot, much longer than the Eliam ministry. I believe since the early '60s. So, which is really incredible. I mean, for anybody to be around that long. So they're located in Bethel, Pennsylvania, and they're called the Assemblies of Yahweh. And there's actually other branches of this tradition in other parts of the world. I believe the Philippines and Kenya, I think, as well. And I think maybe even in Haiti. But I might be mistaken. I'm not sure. You'd have to kind of look those up. Anyway, they have different things that they do. So I'm going to show you. They have the Sacred Name Broadcaster, which is a publication. If you live in the area of Bethel, you can go to their location. This is their um, congregation building or church, if you want to call it that. And then they have a radio outreach, and I think some different podcasts, and you can find things on YouTube, and they're just really great as far as what they represent. And the original Elder Meyer. I'm not sure if he used the title pastor, but he's the individual who started the Elder Jacob Meyer. He started this tradition back in, I believe it was 1965. I think, I'm not quite sure. I'm looking at right here, but this is him, and he's done. He did his own translation of scripture, and very much a Bible scholar. And the tradition really reached all over the planet, and through his, I think it's considered shortwave radio broadcast. It broadcasts all over the world. So really quite incredible. I think he started back in the 1960s, but I think this is him in Israel with the in a field there. But really incredible individual, really prolific as far as what he accomplished in his life and with his ministry. So then he created the Sacred Scriptures Bethel edition based on his own translation of the word. And yeah, he started back in 1969. Traveled widely throughout his ministry, beginning with a 6-week journey around the U.S. In 1969, he visited all 50 states and more than 30 foreign countries, 30 countries and 6 continents, and the work of his ministry for 40 years. Really incredible. But this ministry existed way before any other ones that I'm aware of. I mean, I know there was like a Sacred Names movement at one point in the early 20th century, but as far as with this approach, focused on the different feast days, and restoring the name of the Father to Scripture and Messiah, and just being a full-fledged ministry that articulates the actual faith outlined in Scripture. I mean, this one is the first one I'm aware of in the U.S. So anyway, ministry support. So right here on the outreach, it covers a lot of ground. So the outreach goes into like this radio broadcast. So that's what I want to share today, a radio broadcast. Um, so I'm going to pull that up real quick. So this is the WMLK. So you just click that link on the previous page. Just go here, WMLK, and it's just different broadcasts from this ministry, and more recent ones from one of his sons, Elder Jonathan S. Meyer, and then you have all these collections from Elder Jacob O. Meyer. Then you have Deacon Nathaniel A. Meyer, another one of his sons, that are carrying on the tradition. So I like this one, climactic end time events. I'm just going to share some of this.
I have several passages of scripture this morning that I want to use as a pilot text. The first one is the foundational text for the rest of them, and that is Daniel chapter 12, verses 1 to 4. Daniel chapter 12, verses 1 to 4. And at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince who stands over the children of your people. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to the same time. And at that time your people shall be delivered, everyone that shall be found written in the book. And many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt. And they that are wise shall shine as the brightness of the firmament, and they that turn many to righteousness as the stars forever and ever. But you, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book, even to the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. And then the last verse of the chapter, blessed is he that waits and comes to the 1,335 days. But go your way till the end be, for you shall rest and shall stand in your lot in the end days. The end meaning the word kates in the Hebrew text. Now we turn to what is known as the New Testament and Covenant, Mark chapter 13, beginning with verse 19. Mark 13, verse 19. For those days shall be tribulation, such as there has not been the like from the beginning of the creation which Elohim created until now, and never shall be. And except Yahweh had shortened the days, no flesh would have been saved. But for the elect's sake, whom he chose, he shortened the days. And then, if any man shall say to you, lo, here is the Messiah, or lo, there, believe it not. For there shall arise false messiahs and false prophets, and shall show signs and wonders, that they may lead astray, if possible, the elect. But take you heed, behold, I have told you all these things beforehand. But in those days after that tribulation, the sun shall be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall be falling from heaven, and the powers that are in the heavens shall be shaken. Then shall they see the Son of Man coming in the clouds with great power and glory. And then shall he send forth his angels, and shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from the farthest part of the earth to the uttermost part of heaven. Now from the fig tree learn her parable. When her branch is now become tender and puts forth its leaves, you know that the summer is near. Even so, you also, when you see these things coming to pass, know that he is nigh, even at the doors. Truly I say to you, this generation shall not pass away until all things be accomplished. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my word shall not pass away. But of that day or that hour knows no one, not even the angels in heaven, neither the Son, but the Father. Take heed, watch and pray, for you know not when the time is. It is when a man sojourning in another country, having left his house and given authority to his servants, to each one his work, commanded also the porter to watch. Watch therefore, for you know not when the master of the house comes, whether at evening or at midnight or at cock crowing or in the morning, lest coming suddenly he should find you sleeping. And what I say to you, I say to all, watch. Now we'll continue and turn back to Luke chapter 21, which is a comparable text of the Olivet prophecy in the book of Luke. Luke 21, verse 20. But when you see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that her desolation is at hand. Then let them that are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them that are in the middle of her depart out, and let not them that are in the country enter in it. For these are the days of vengeance, that all things that are written must be fulfilled. Woe to them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days, for there shall be great distress upon the land, and wrath to this people. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led captive in all the nations, and Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles, till the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. And there shall be signs in sun and moon and stars, and upon the earth distress of nations, in perplexity for the roaring of the sea and the billows, men fainting for fear and for expectation of the things which are coming on the world. For the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. Then shall they see the Son of Man coming in a cloud, with power and great glory. But when these things begin to come to pass, look up and lift up your heads, because your redemption draws near. And we'll turn back to Matthew 24, which is again one of the records of the Olivet prophecy. Matthew 24, beginning with verse 4. Beginning with verse 41. Actually, I want to start with 40. Then shall two men be in the field, one is taken and one is left. Two women shall be grinding at the mill, one is taken and one is left. Watch therefore, for you know not on what day your master comes. But know this, that the master of the house, if the master of the house had known in what watch the thief was coming, he would have watched and would not have permitted his house to be broken through. Therefore be you also ready, for in an hour that you think not, the Son of Man comes. Who then is the faithful and wise servant, whom the master has set over his household to give them their food in due season? Blessed is that servant whom his master, when he comes, shall find so doing. Truly I say to you, he will set him over all that he has. But if that evil servant shall say in his heart, my master tarries, and shall begin to beat his fellow servants, and shall eat and drink with the drunken, the master of that servant shall come in a day when he expects not, and in an hour when he knows not, and shall severely scourge him and appoint his portion with the hypocrites. There shall be weeping and the gnashing of teeth. The title of the message this morning will be Climactic End Time Events. And I want climactic end time events. And the feast theme, I want to reiterate, is calling a spiritual nation from a sinful world. This is parallel to the Exodus. This past week, there appeared a report in the media stating that in a meeting of Muslim scientists in Qatar, Middle East, a proposal was made to relocate the prime meridian from which time around the world is figured. The prime meridian is located in Greenwich, England. They want to relocate the prime meridian from which time is figured to run through Mecca, Saudi Arabia, because this city is said to be the center of the world. What audacity, I thought. It seems that there are many places on earth that the worldly people have assigned this lofty position to be the center of the world. However, here for the first time I heard about the Muslims making a proposal to relocate the prime meridian so that it runs through Mecca. Islam apparently intends to take over more of our daily lives. Meanwhile, Muslim countries rake in our oil dollars and live good in the process. I heard on the television an announcement yesterday afternoon that Mahmoud Abbas, the Palestinian Prime Minister, had visited Washington and now was returning home, and he was very much depressed with what he had heard in Washington. I don't know, it wasn't fully reported, but I'm going to be watching the newspapers for a more detailed report. But he also is of the opinion that Israel should not exist, and that Psalm 83 is going to be fulfilled. Now, when we go back into history, we can see that there were various nations, Great Britain included, that made many colonies, and it was their intention to tax the colonists, as here in the United States, taxation without representation, and take that money back to England, and everyone was going to live good off the proceeds. At the present time, in Muslim oil countries, people don't need to work. They're living off the proceeds of our oil dollars. I hope that you understand what's going on. They're not going to relinquish those dollars. They want to live like kings, all of them, and not work at all. This morning I could look to the future and preach a message wherein the members of the assemblies of Yahweh would undoubtedly depart from worship services depressed or fearful. I see a lot of things in the scriptures that are now taking shape out in the world. And I'm going to be preaching on these subjects, but I'm not going to hammer this home in only one sermon. Oil prices are spiraling upward. The world food supply is being threatened. Food prices are rising, and the world is changing overnight. There have already been food riots. There are going to be more than food riots. Let me tell you, World War I was the culmination of an economic upheaval that struck the world during the Industrial Revolution. World War II was the result of the world coming to grips with the Great Depression. And the world governments, the governments of the nations of the world, thought that by waging war, they could bring the world out of depression by getting the people back to work and borrowing the money to pay for the war. World War III is going to be a world war. The Battle of Armageddon is looming. And it's a war concerning energy and food. And that, I'm going to show you, is going to be an atomic war. So let's get ourselves close to Yahweh. That's the only protection that we can have right now. I'll tell you point blank. The only protection that we can have is to get ourselves close to Yahweh. The world is changing overnight. However, several evenings ago, I had an inspiration. And it's an inspiration for this prophetic sermon that I want to share with you this morning on this Sabbath day. It's a message of faith and hope. So let's take courage. Turn again to Luke chapter 21, and we'll begin reading with verse 10. Now, Yahshua the Messiah was not wrong when he described how the world will be. Let's just pause for a moment in Matthew 24. When he said, "For nation shall rise against nation." Well, let's start one verse back. "For many shall come in my name, saying, I am the Messiah, and shall lead many astray. And you shall hear of wars." Do we hear of wars? The wars are going on right now. Over in the Middle East, in Iraq, and Afghanistan, and other places. And rumors of wars. Those rumors of wars are whether the United States is going to take out Iran, and Syria maybe, and North Korea perhaps because of their atomic adventures. So that there are rumors of wars. See that you be not troubled. For these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. So there's going to be a lot of war, conflict at the end of the age. And there shall be famines. Oh, he wasn't wrong. We glide over these words so easily. You don't know what a famine is, do you? When Joseph Stalin appropriated all the food in portions of the USSR, and there were, I think, 10 or 12 million people died one winter because they had no food. Listen, things are serious. And I see that a lot of people in the world, and it's gravitated into the assemblies of Yahweh. We're not getting serious about getting close to Yahweh. Now, there are ways out of these situations that I want to bring out this morning. Famines, and what else? Earthquakes, just this last week. A 5-point-something earthquake out in West Salem, Illinois. Yes, constantly earthquakes in places where they don't usually strike. And then the question was asked, when is the New Madrid fault going to erupt out in the Midwest? Well, it's going to happen before too long, I presume. And then it says, but these things are the beginning of travail. We haven't even seen the end of the travail yet. Then shall they deliver you up to tribulation, and shall kill you, and you shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. And then shall many stumble and deliver up one another, and shall hate one another. From my experience in the past, I wonder who's going to be the one to turn me over to the authorities. I don't know. Some of you have had to correct, and the correction hasn't been too pleasant, I guess. And so perhaps you're just waiting for the moment to turn me over to the authorities. Well, so be it, I guess. Now let's go to Luke chapter 21 and verse 10. Then said he to them, nation shall rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be great earthquakes. Have we seen great earthquakes? Well, I should say so. Those earthquakes over in Indonesia that produced those tsunamis, the first tsunami on December 26, I think 2005 or 6, swept along the shores of the Indian Ocean and killed people on the shoreline in 12 different countries. That was a major, major event, geological event. There shall be great earthquakes, and in divers places famines, in different places famines, and pestilences. You talk to the doctors. It was in the paper. This was one of the greatest flu seasons that we have ever sustained. I caught a flu. I don't know where I caught it, whether I caught it on the plane in England, in Israel, or in New York City going over or coming back. But I caught a flu bug, and this took me some real battles to get rid of it. And then the doctors told me there's some awful things out there. What about MRSA? Are you worried about MRSA? Keep the Purell bottles handy, and even Purell may not even battle MRSA. That MRSA is a staph infection. And Jonathan had something that he caught in the hospital when he had an operation on his foot. And this thing just kept building up, and his leg looked terrible, discolored. But eventually they got ahead of it by some kind of antibiotics. But don't count on antibiotics too long, because there are limitations to what you can expect from them. There shall be famines and pestilences. What other pestilences are there? Well, how about foot and mouth disease over in England, cattle disease, and you can also, how about the deer disease that's killing deer here in the United States? Pestilences of all kinds are around. And then they say, use more chemical, use more spray. And there shall be terrors and great signs from heaven. And the Peshitta reads, and the winters shall be severe. There's no global warming here, is there? Al Gore has been misleading many, many people. These, if you look back on the high temperatures in the weather books, you're going to see that there is no global warming. It just goes in cycles. I remember when I was a young man, a young boy, the winters were severe. There was so much snow at one time where I was born that I could walk over the fence between the yard and the garden on a big snowdrift that was captured by the fence. And then a few years later, over here when I was raised on the farm within almost hailing distance of where we are worshiping today, there was no snow one winter, but there were ice storms. I remember a coating of about an inch of ice. No, it wasn't a snow event, but it was an ice event. And the temperatures weren't that severe. But I can remember severe temperatures later on. So it just goes in cycles, and Al Gore has stampeded the world into believing in global warming. The Peshitta says the winters shall be severe. Now, with the price of fuel oil going up and up and up, I called our representative in Congress, and I said, what would be wrong with price controls? In the Second World War, there were price controls. Richard Nixon installed price controls in the 70s when things got out of hand. Why couldn't the Congress say, all right, we're going to roll back the prices? Answer, the Muslims are putting the pressure on Abbas. You know, if we were to just say, okay, we're going to abandon Israel, Palestinians take over the whole area over there, what Israel presently occupies, they'd probably drop the price of oil or begin pumping more oil and drive the price down. But we can't do that. We are aligned with Israel, and we have promised to support Israel. So you see, this is a very involved situation. And we cannot depend on oil diplomacy. But before all these things, they shall lay hands on you and shall persecute you and deliver you up to the synagogues and prisons, bring you before kings and governors for my name's sake. And it shall turn out to you for a testimony. Settle it therefore in your hearts not to meditate beforehand how to answer. For I will give you a mouth and wisdom, which all your adversaries shall not be able to withstand or to gainsay. But you shall be delivered up, even by parents and brethren and kinfolk and friends. Some of you shall they cause to be put to death. And you shall be hated of all men for my name's sake, and not a hair of your head shall perish. You see that? A promise. In your patience you shall win your souls. Now let's have faith in Yahweh to bring us through these troubled times. That's my inspiration that I got the other evening. So I'm going to take this approach to the message this morning. Turn with me to Matthew 10, verse 29. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny? And not one of them shall fall to the ground without your Father. But the very hairs of your head are all numbered. Fear not, therefore, you are of more value than many sparrows. Everyone, therefore, who shall confess me before men, him will I also confess before my Father who is in heaven. But whoever shall deny me before men, him will I also deny before my Father who is in heaven. What a great promise. You are of more value than many sparrows. And that means he is watching us, and he will protect us. Luke chapter 12, verse 4. Oh, I'm so thrilled when I see some of these promises. Luke 12, verse 4. And I say to you, my friends, be not afraid of them that kill the body, and after that have no more that they can do. But I will warn you whom you shall fear. Fear him who after he has killed has power to cast into Gehenna. Yes, I say to you, fear him. Are not 5 sparrows sold for 2 asarai? And not one of them is forgotten in the sight of Elohim. But the very hairs of your head are all numbered. Yahweh knows who we are. Fear not, you are of more value than many sparrows. And I say to you, everyone who shall confess me before men, him shall the Son of Man also confess before the angels of Elohim. But he that denies me in the presence of men shall be denied in the presence of the angels of Elohim. And then drop down to verse 28 in this same 12th chapter of Luke. Luke 12:28. But if Elohim does so clothe the grass in the field, which today is and tomorrow is cast into the oven, how much more shall he clothe you, O you of little faith? And seek you not what you shall eat? Are you following me? Don't be concerned about what you shall eat and what you shall drink. Neither be you of a doubtful mind. Now, I want to emphasize here, if we are following Yahweh's covenant law, we are going to be concerned about stocking up for the sabbatical year. And that's going to have some meaning in end-time prophecy for all of us. I've preached this message for many years. If you go back probably 30 years, you will hear a message wherein I said, now when we start keeping the sabbatical year, it's going to have some influence on whether we are going to be able to endure the tribulation and end-time prophecy. We'll be stocked up for a year for the sabbatical, and undoubtedly more than we need for the sabbatical, taking us into the next cycle. What's the next sabbatical cycle going to bring for us? We don't know that yet. We have to watch, and watch very carefully. So Yahshua the Messiah says, now don't be overly concerned about what you're going to eat or what you're going to drink, because we find that for all these things, well, let's continue the thought. Seek not what you shall eat and what you shall drink, neither be you of a doubtful mind. Don't doubt Yahweh's word. Don't doubt his law. His law is a good law, and it's there for a reason. And so we're told we must keep the sabbatical year. If you're arrogant, you say, I won't keep it. I won't stock up. I won't do this. I won't do that. You know what's going to happen? You may just starve to death. For all these things do the nations of the world seek after, but your Father knows that you have need of these things. So, what did he do? He handed down a law. Stock up. And when somebody is arrogant and says, I'm not going to keep the sabbatical year, and on, I don't have room to store food, you do what you can. I've seen some of the brethren store food under their beds and under their behind their sofas. You'll find room to store food. Yet seek the kingdom of Yahweh, and these things shall be added to you. Fear not, little flock, it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. So consequently, there are some very encouraging prophecies I want to address this morning. There's an Assemblies of Yahweh example of protection during drought and famine that we find in the sacred scriptures. Turn to 1 Kings 17. And what am I driving at? Eliah the prophet. What happened to Eliah the prophet anyway? What happened to Eliah the prophet can be parallel to what's going to happen to the members of the Assemblies of Yahweh or to this organization. And Eliah the Tishbite, the word Tishbite would imply a priest or a prophet to the northern kingdom. Eliah the Tishbite, who was of the sojourners of Gilead. So he was actually a priest or a prophet in Transjordan, Gilead, said to Ahab, king of the 10 northern tribes, as Yahweh the Elohim of Israel lives, before whom I stand, there shall not be dew nor rain these years, but according to my word. So, there's not going to be rainfall. So now, consequently, what's going to happen? The word of Yahweh came to Eliah the Tishbite, saying, go from here, and turn eastward and hide yourself by the brook Cherith, that is before the Jordan. And it shall be that you shall drink of the brook, and I have commanded the Arabs. Now, the word in Hebrew is ayin resh beis, and it is vowel pointed cholam sereh, Orave. Well, Orave means a raven. Are birds going to be feeding Eliah the prophet? Well, it's possible. But then if you re-vowel point it, then it becomes Arov or Arab. That would be much more plausible, that Arabs would be feeding an Israelite. And Yahweh would have to work on the heart of those Arabs to give this homeless Israelite some food. And it shall be that you shall drink of the brook, and I will command the Arabs to feed you there. So he went and did according to the word of Yahweh, for he went and dwelt by the brook Cherith, that is before the Jordan. And the Arabs brought him bread and flesh in the morning, and bread and flesh in the evening, and he drank of the brook. So I like to think that this is humans feeding Eliah the Tishbite. And it took a miracle for those Arabs to like an Israelite. Came to pass after a while that the brook dried up, because there was no rain in the land. And the word of Yahweh came to him, saying, Arise and go to Zarephath, which belongs to Zidon. Don't stay here any longer in Israelite territory, because I'm going to withhold the rain. Now you go over into the next country, into Lebanon, and you go to Zidon. And there's a little town in the city-state of Zidon called Zarephath. And you dwell there. I have commanded a widow there to sustain you. So now the water and the food dried up, so you have to move. So he arose and went to Zarephath, and when he came to the gate of the city, behold, the widow was there gathering sticks. And he called to her and said, Bring me, I pray you, a little water in a vessel, that I may drink. And as she was going to bring it, and on second thought, bring me a little cake, a morsel of bread in your hand. She said, As Yahweh lives, I don't have any cake of bread, but a handful of meal in a jar, and a little oil in a cruse. And behold, I'm gathering 2 sticks, that I may go in and dress it for me and my son, that we may eat it and die. I said to her, Fear not, go and do as I have said, but make me of it a little cake first, and bring it forth to me, and afterward make for yourself and for your son. For thus says Yahweh, the Elohim of Israel, The jar of meal shall not be used up, neither shall the cruse of oil fail, until the day that Yahweh sends rain upon the earth. And she went and did according to the saying of Eliah. And she and he and her house ate many days. The jar of meal was not used up, neither did the cruse of oil fail, according to the word of Yahweh which he spoke by Eliah. Do you think Yahweh can't feed us? Sure he can. He can tell some unbelievers, share some food with this Assemblies of Yahweh family. They have nothing to eat. And it'll be like Eliah the prophet at the brook Cherith. Or, how many times have you seen that your stocking up was blessed by Yahweh and you had extra? And that extra went along. Where did the extra come from? Maybe a miracle. But Yahweh is going to watch over us. And here I want to emphasize that we are walking in the footsteps of Eliah the prophet. We are the modern day Eliah. And so we are going to expect Yahweh to watch over us and deal well with us. And so, of course, the child of this woman of Zarephath, this widow of Zarephath, died. And she was bitter. She said, "What have I to do with you, you men of Elohim? You have come to me to bring my sin to remembrance and to kill my son." He said, "Give me your son." And he took him out of her bosom, carried him up into the chamber where he lived, laid him on his own bed, and he cried to Yahweh, "O Yahweh, my Elohim, have you also brought evil upon this widow with whom I sojourned by killing her son?" And he stretched himself upon the child 3 times, and he cried to Yahweh, "O Yahweh, my Elohim, I pray you, let the child's life come into him again." And Yahweh listened to the voice of Eliah. Yahweh has listened to our voice praying. We have no power to heal. I can't heal anybody. The only thing I can do is see if your case has merit, and if it has merit, to pray for you. And Yahweh is the powerful force in this universe that can reach down and bring people back from very serious illnesses. I experienced that with Mrs. Meyer about 2.5, 3 months ago. And I've told you the story, how she was going comatose, unresponsive. The doctors and nurses couldn't raise her. They couldn't rouse her. And so my sons and I went to her bed, and I prayed just as powerfully as I could. "Father, this is your daughter. She has been dedicated for over 40 years. Look what she has done, asking nothing back from you. Now she needs you. Please, Father, don't disappoint her." And I anointed her and continued praying, my sons praying at my side, at the side of the bed. And when I went home and prayed again, I said, "If there's an angel here, I don't know your name perhaps, but whoever it is, one of the angels of the scriptures, or Gabriel or whoever, Raphael or whoever it is, but please go to the throne of Yahweh and tell Yahweh that your daughter, your dedicated daughter, needs your help now." And I felt something brush across my face, like something was departing. Within a few minutes, I got a telephone call from my son Solomon. He said, "I want to give you some good news." At the beginning of this Sabbath, he said, "Mom is responsive again. She opened her eyes, and she is following us around. She knows where she is." And I said, "Well, hallelujah." And from then on, she began to recover. But it's all Yahweh that did it, because Yahweh heard our prayers. Listen, if you're sincere, Yahweh will hear your prayers. And I always tell my little grandchildren, you pray especially hard, because your angels always have access to Yahweh. That's a standing order up in heaven. Their angels do always behold the face of Father Yahweh. They always can get in there. If you ask, and I know this to be a fact when I was young, and we prayed, sometimes within minutes the prayers were answered. And I keep thinking, maybe we have too much baggage behind us. But when I was little, there were a number of times one of us was sick, and then they would say, "Now we're going to kneel down and we're going to pray and have faith that Yahweh," well, we didn't know the name Yahweh that time, but that Yahweh was going to answer us. And within minutes, the answer was there. So have faith, brethren. Don't put anything past Yahweh.